everyone. Welcome to the OIB-TAC February webinar. I'm Sylvia Stinson-Perez, Director of the Older Individuals Who Are Blind Technical Assistance Center. And providing our technical support today is Simon Marcy. Say hi, Simon.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
And we are just thrilled to have with us Becky Andrews. I met Becky virtually. We haven't yet met in person, unfortunately, but I'm hoping soon. I met Becky about a year ago because Becky has retreats that she does for women who are visually impaired. And I really learned a lot about what she does. And today she's going to be sharing with us on cultivating resilience, and she's going to share some great resources she has. Welcome, Becky. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So, Becky, I know that you are visually impaired. In fact, I know that you also have RP, which is what I have. Can you tell us a little bit about your vision loss journey?
Certainly. It is quite a journey, isn't it? My first memory, I was 3. I remember in the movie theaters, my mom, I walked into the wall. I didn't, going out, didn't accommodate in the darkness, and, kind of went through that night blindness, not quite sure what that was until I was 18, when I was actually dating my husband at the time, and I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa through a neurologist who was doing the testing, putting his fingers out, how many fingers, and I didn't know that you could see fingers out to the side. So gone through that journey of kind of, navigating, learning. I feel like I've just, continued to learn. I feel like technology is probably the area that I just feel like, okay, I got to learn more and everything. Got my first guide dog when I was a young mom, and had just graduated with my master's degree. So I feel like my family, we've all gone on this journey together, adjusting.
One of the things you say in your Cultivating Resilience workbook that I just love, resilience is the effort to honor the journey as you move forward. I love that, and it's so true. So today you are a licensed mental health counselor. So tell us a little bit about how that came about and your practice.
Okay, yes, I was a licensed clinical mental health counselor, worked at the Moran Eye Center for a few years, and then thought, what area scares me? I decided it was working with adolescents at a treatment center, and just grew to, I love these kids, and I learned so much and really expanded my growth and my learning. And then in 2006, I opened up a private practice, and really I love the word resilient. That just has always spoken to me, that ability to be stretched and transformed. And so just named our practice Resilient Solutions. And it's grown from me starting that to we have 17 therapists and a yoga instructor. And so grateful for this, now this community that we learn and grow from one another, and just love what I get to do.
Congratulations on all you do, and thank you for making a difference in people's lives.
Thank you.
Becky, how do you describe or define resilience? This is a term we hear a lot, but how do you define that?
Boy, When I think of resilience, I often grab a hairband or an elastic band and think of how we're stretched, how we have challenges, adversity that comes our way, and we get stretched. We get pulled in different ways. And we experience losses. Certainly this year we've had so much we've been navigating collectively and individually. And resilience is our ability to be transformed from that. And I think that's a process. It doesn't just happen. We don't just jump to, that next step. It's authentically honoring our journey and listening to what we're feeling, what we need, and moving forward and being transformed from the process.
Yes. And one of the things you also say in the workbooks is that it takes work, actual work, to build that resilience. And we do it through behaviors, thoughts, and actions. So what qualities does a resilient person have?
Yeah, I think, like you said, to me, resilience is like a muscle that we're that we work on. And it has, as we work on it, we get muscle memory to go back to it. I think of I love to run I use a tether and guides, and I didn't run for about 3 weeks. And I was telling one of my friends, when we started back running, I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna, throw up. And she said, your body will remember that it runs. And I think that same sense with resilience, when we work on it and we cultivate it, when we're in those challenging times, we have these go-tos, these practices that can help us get through those difficult times. So I think of it as something we cultivate, we want to just be resilient, but I think it's something that we cultivate each day. When I think of cultivate, I think of, digging in the garden and working. And I think it takes effort. It takes practices that create that.
You've got to grow it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. How do we cultivate that resilience every day? What are some practical things that each of us can do?
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? Just these habits, these things we do that help us, that create that resilience. And I think they're different. Like for me, starting my day running, it's just so helpful to me. It's a way that I just clear my head. I, move my body. And for somebody else, it might be something different. So I think it's really important that we get to know ourselves, so that we know what that is for us, that those qualities that a resilient person has, that we continue to build. It's not like we're just where we're at. We continue to work on them, and it's that self-awareness, that insight. Okay, what's helpful to me? What do I need? And I think being aware, that self-care practice of just being aware of how we're feeling and what we need in that day, seems simple, but it's not simple,
It's not, because so often, either as a person who's visually impaired, and when you add in working with people who are challenged in their own lives, it just can be overwhelming, and you don't take the time to take care of yourself. And
a lot. Yeah. And I think recognizing sometimes that it's a lot is part of being resilient, being authentic and going, okay, this is a lot. I'm going to take a pause And, you know, when I think of taking a pause, I naturally put my hand to my heart, you know, but it can be cupping your hands underneath your chin, or doing the butterfly hug, some way that we're just kind of taking that pause and saying, what do I need right now? And taking
And
some breaths,
breathing,
you know,
just taking time to breathe and not pushing yourself.
Yeah.
I think we, you know, when we're at work, we think I've got to pack these 40 hours in every single minute with work. And the demands are great, especially when, you know, you have clients who are depending on you, who need you, no matter what age they are. Or if you're a teacher and you have these students who are depending on you. But I think it's so true, and you really talk about this so much, is that if we can't take care of ourselves, we can't effectively take care of the needs of other people and be our best for them. We have to be our best for ourselves so that we can put out the best for others.
Yeah, I think reminding myself of that just like gives us that permission, you know, because it's like we want to help, we want to do, we want to do so much. And to remind myself, I can't show up for someone else if I'm not taking time for myself and giving myself that self-care and really feeling the oil back in the lamp, you know, to be able to give it to others.
You provided us the 10 resilient practices handout, which is available on our website, www.oib-tac.org. And it's already been downloaded a bunch of times, and I bet more people are going to start downloading it. But tell us about these 10 resilient practices.
That's wonderful. And first of all, I hope they're just they're so helpful. I know they've been, you know, so helpful to me in my life and to my clients. And I like to refer to them as practices because I think we continue to practice. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we're able to practice more than others. And I think it just gives us that permission. So practice 1 is giving yourself permission to feel. I think often we feel like we got to push forward, you know, get on to that next step. We want to get through something that's challenging, and taking that pause to give ourselves permission to feel. How am I doing? What do I need? Really recognizing how we're feeling. You know, the research indicates when we're able to label our emotions, just that helps us. You know, when you think of your emotions as moving through a tunnel, which I appreciate with RP, you know, that you're moving through that tunnel, that we don't want to get stuck. We want to be able to get that emotion through. So to feel like we have our feelings, we notice it, we name it, we accept it, and then possibly choose an action. That can help us. And then practice 2 is to offer yourself some self-compassion, to treat yourself as you would a friend. How quickly we are when we hear what someone else is going through, to acknowledge that, to validate it, to support them. And self-compassion is simply giving that same level of compassion to yourself.
One of the things you said in your workbook is self-compassion is the foundation of kindness to others. That's just so brilliant and so true.
Yeah, that we really need it within us to be able to give it out. And again, I think that can give us permission, like, okay, I'm going to be kind and compassionate to myself so I can share it with others. And then, as you mentioned, that self-care, those self-care practices to find what we need. You know, we have emotional, physical, spiritual, social, and cognitive. To recognize what nurtures us, what fills us up, is so helpful as we, you know, try and keep going to recognize what self-care practices help us. And then practice three I love is utilizing our strengths. And it comes from positive psychology that, we have character traits. There's 24 key character traits. And, there's a test you can take. I think often we recognize what some of ours are just naturally, but if we don't recognize them, there's a test you can take that will identify those. And our top kind of 5, 6, 7 strengths are our signature strengths, and they're our superpowers. They're kind of, they're just waiting to help us through difficult times. If we will realize that and utilize them, they're there available to help us. And some examples are compassion, curiosity, love of learning, honesty, bravery. I mean, there's 24 of them, and appreciation of nature. And once we recognize what ours are, they really become a superpower, a way that can help us in our resilience. Practice 4 is that sense of connection, community, to recognize that we're all in this together. There's times where we need support, and there's times where we can give support, and recognizing who our support is, how we can connect that's helpful to us, and also recognizing healthy boundaries. When we say yes to something, it usually means we got to say no to something, and finding that balance and recognizing our boundaries, what's okay, what's not okay for us in our relationships, in our personal life, is really important as we're navigating challenging times.
So I also want to bring up, talking about this connection thing and boundaries, is that I think right now, over the past year, people have felt a little disconnected. There's been this isolation that people experience. And I think I would like to encourage people to really take the opportunity, because for many people, there have actually been more doors open to connecting because of the whole virtual world, using Zoom and other type platforms. There's many more groups now available. There's support groups, there's activity groups. I know that I am pretty much involved in something almost every day of the week besides work things. I have all of these kind of fun groups that I'm either leading or participating in that I was not involved with prior to this whole social isolation or social distancing thing, because I've taken advantage of the opportunities that have come about or created things with the virtual platforms and virtual world. And I hope everyone will look for some of those opportunities, because there's some fantastic things. And it is a little different connecting remotely and virtually versus that in-person connection. But one thing I will say is that I've made some really wonderful friendships, and I can't wait till when I can actually meet those people in person. And Becky is one of those people for me.
Yes, isn't that so true? Yes, I look forward to that day. And I think that, practice 8 in resilience, perhaps there is another way, being open and flexible. And I think this past year we've seen that in so many ways, like how things can be offered and doors that have been opened and options.
We've shown our resilience.
Right. Yes. You the ways that amongst these challenges that people have found to connect, to support, to show up for one another, being creative and being open to that and being flexible, we've had to say, okay, plan A is not working. And but what about plan B, C, D? And like you say, there's some things that I'm like, boy, let's continue on with that. I don't want, that's working. Let's continue to do that. I know with our retreats in person, we suddenly, had to kind of go, this doesn't work. And we completed 2 virtual ones. And I recognized that, wow, this is giving more women the opportunity to come that can't travel to Utah. Suddenly, like there's more opportunities. And so that expanded another option. So I love that practice. And I think that is such an important, resilient practice. We have to be willing to see other options, other ways of doing things. And I think, retinitis pigmentosa, RP, has certainly taught me that, like, okay, this maybe A that I thought was the way you did it. And then I realized, wow, B works great, So, yes. And I think another practice is recognizing our grit and determination. And I put that one in the middle because I think that's important that every once in a while we just kind of take a pause and say, wow, I'm doing okay. I'm pushing through this. I'm showing some grit. I'm showing some determination. I'm finding a way. I think so often that happens is we have to show some determination to find a way to do it. Like maybe
it reminds me of that old, I think it's the Winnie the Pooh quote, you're braver and stronger than you think.
Yes.
And we do have to remind ourselves that we are braver and stronger than we think.
Yes. Yes. And those times when we're stretched gives us the opportunity to do that, to find that part within us that's there. Practice 6 is kind of that mindfulness, that being in the present that's so important. Savoring. No matter what is happening in our life, we can take some time to savor. You think savor might be just that moment where you're like walking hand in hand with your husband and you're going, boy, it just feels good to be together. We're here together. Or you're having a delicious meal and, experiencing the taste and, just being in that moment. Another point about savoring that I've heard from clients that's happening right now is we're going back and we're not doing maybe some of the traveling or some of those things, and so we're having this time to go back and savor past memories. Remember that time we went here as a family or something. So savoring is just like cherishing, capturing that moment, that positive moment that's happening. And
I would also point out too, because on this webinar, we have a lot of professionals who work with people who are going through some challenging times. They're new to their vision loss, or they've had just some stresses related to that. And so I think it's really important to also be very mindful when you make a really big impact on someone's life, to stop and think about that and be aware that every day you have the opportunity, and most days we do something that really does make a positive impact on someone's life. Now we have those days where it's like it's frustrating because you can't make the things happen that you want to happen, but think about every day before you kind of close off work is, what did I do to change a life today? And be mindful of that, because it really does give you that desire to keep going.
Wow. So true. It makes me think too of, boy, those professionals along the way that have helped me.
Mhm.
I've thought about and I've reached, which leads me to the next little step. I'll just mention it and then share this example of gratitude.
Mhm.
You know, and gratitude, we know gratitude practice helps us. And it's separate from, you know, we need to give ourselves the permission to feel and have all those feelings along the journey. And gratitude is also a practice where no matter what's going on, we can take that pause and notice gratitude. And one of the activities that we do in our course is that's a positive psychology activity, is we invite the members and to think of somebody that's impacted their life. And I've written to my O&M instructor, because you definitely was in that place. And you take a pause and you think about someone that's impacted your life that you're grateful for. And then you write a letter to them.
Mhm.
And then if it's possible, you deliver that letter in person. And you know, sometimes, probably right now, especially not possible, but also can be if it's in someone close to you, but you know, you can call them up, you connect and you share this appreciation with them. And what they found is that boosted the resilience of the giver and the receiver. You think how amazing it is to receive that
Mhm.
note of gratitude and also to think back through it and give it. So I think that's really an important piece. I remember struggling to start using the cane. And I remember my O&M instructor standing down at the mall and just asking me, is this helpful? Well, yes, it's helpful. You know, is it keeping you safe?
I'm not
Well,
happy, but
yes,
it's helpful.
and you know, and she said that I think you need to be true to who you are. And it was this conversation that just has stayed with me, because I thought, thank you, that's what I needed to be reminded of. That, you know, just be true to who you are. You need this tool that's going to help you travel safely.
I recently had an experience where, so I was really fortunate that growing up, I had the same teacher of the visually impaired from kindergarten through high school. She actually handed me my high school diploma. She came to my college graduation.
Oh,
It
lovely.
was probably 15 years ago that I last saw her. And then probably 2 years ago since I had been in touch. Well, a couple weeks ago, her daughter messaged me to say that she had passed away. And her daughter wrote me just a really nice message saying that how much I meant to her mother. But I was able to write back to her and tell her how what a significant difference her mother had made in my life. And so I think that, you know, I felt like this, you know, she thanked me for the words I said back to her, because I know that it's a hard time. She's grieving that loss, and I've been there to grieve the loss of your mom, and how important it is for people to say she mattered, and she really did. And so it was just an opportunity, like you're saying, to express my gratitude.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Yes.
So your next practice?
Practice 7, find laughter and joy in each day. You know, that says a lot, doesn't it? But I think sometimes we're going through, you know, sometimes it's hard to find that joy when we're back up to, you know, the starting of something difficult. It's there, and we have to give ourselves permission to allow it to take the time it needs. But then once we're able to say, I'm going to make sure I find laughter and joy in each day. it come, and I
Right.
think it becomes the practice, whether you say, okay, we're going to, share a funny story, or we're going to dance, or we're going to, just some way that you find joy is important.
And do you think being willing to laugh even at yourself or a situation? I grew up hearing sometimes, you have to laugh, otherwise you'll cry. And
Right.
it's so true to me, because there are situations that are just so out of control and just crazy. And, as a person who's blind, things happen that are embarrassing, or you have to learn to laugh at yourself and laugh with your clients too. It's so important to teach them to laugh.
Right. It just lightens it, right? It just, lifts it and lightens it when we can not take ourselves so seriously and just find the humor. One of my favorite pictures that just happened, that my husband captured it, is we were to dinner with two other ladies and their spouses, and I was pulling the three of us in for a picture, and being blind, I thought I was pulling the two of them in, and I pulled in this man, but come on, ladies, and Steve caught it, and it's just this moment when it's just after I've realized it, and I'm apologizing to him, and the three of us are just laughing our heads off, and we're all, visually impaired, and just finding the humor in this moment.
Right. Because of course it's embarrassing, but
Yeah.
you know what? It's more funny than it is embarrassing, if you can get there. And I think we've all, I know that I have done similar things. I have walked up to perfect stranger men thinking they were my husband.
Yes. We could spend hours on this conversation. But it feels so good.
Helping our clients even talk about those things, and finding that it humanizes our situations. And one of the things that you said is finding the humor puts us in an observer role. And so it takes us out of that role, out of that embarrassing moment, and helps us see that the situation, the aspects of the situation that are funny and that are humorous and that are, to me, human. And being accept that those are just things happen in life to everyone.
Yes. We just get to be human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that's okay.
Yes. Yes. Love that. Yes. Ada, we mentioned that perhaps there is another way, that flexibility, that, being open to growth and learning. And I think, again, that comes, sometimes these practices, they can be a mindset. Like, you think the more we kind of have that mindset, it helps us in bigger challenges. If we can just kind of have that mindset, like, perhaps there's another way. The less rigid we are, the more resilient we can be with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then practice 9, finding those meaningful moments and lessons learned. Isn't it nice when we can, it's almost like we're, stepped away a little bit and can recognize that this challenge or this, situation or this loss, whatever you're experiencing, also offers some real meaningful moments. It offers some lessons to be learned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I think the last one, practice 10, is the value and importance of giving back and helping others along the way. Mm. I watch this so much, in my practice. I offer a group, And then the next group, many of those want to be mentors. They want to support. They want to give back. They want to help, you know. And that again helps us find meaning in our experiences, helps us in that resilient journey.
Right. Yeah, we all want to be needed.
Right.
We all want to be needed and valued. So true. Well, Becky, discuss this concept of, we always talk about learning to cope with vision loss, but you talk about thriving. So talk about the difference between thriving and coping.
Right. And you know, I think they both have a place, right? We cope with something, and then we need to be able to thrive. You think coping is those steps to get us through the day, that kind of help us get through, and coping takes energy. You know, usually it's somewhat draining. When you think about a time when you're coping, you're like, okay, I gotta figure out a way to do this. It's a challenging time usually, but it's that first step of being able to you know, to take that first step. And then at some point, coping can be draining, and so we then need to take that next step and say, how do I want to thrive? Thrive gives us energy. You know, cope gets us by, and then when we're thriving, we've got a purpose, we have meaning, we're in the flow. I think of, you know, coping is kind of that our safety. It's that step. And thriving is that growth, that learning, that movement place. And
you mentioned the whole garden theme, and in my mind, I'm just seeing that coping is that seed that was planted, and you're trying to get out from under that dirt. And once you get out from under that dirt and you're growing and the sun is there and you're starting to blossom and turn into a flower, is when you're thriving, when you're seeking out that beauty and that growth. That just popped into my head.
Visual. I love that visual. That's so neat. Yeah.
Well, these are 10 brilliant, resilient practices. And I remind everyone, you said they're practices. We aren't just born with these, and, you know, we can't just read a book and get them. That it takes work to develop these, and we have to be focused and mindful and do something every day to become resilient. So give us some last really great advice in how to be more resilient people before we move to the question and answer session.
That's quite a question, right? I love it.
Be resilient and come up with something brilliant.
I think, you know, this is the therapist, but recognizing that we're enough. You know, I think starting from that foundation of knowing our truth and our value is so important, you know, to honor ourselves and honor our journey. You know, that we each have a resilient journey. It's going to be different, and so to value ourselves, I think, is that first step in resiliency. It's really honoring that, recognizing that, gosh, we go through some difficult experiences in life, and kind of recognizing that we're not alone in that, and reaching out, making sure you have a connection, a support system, and visualizing your purpose. You know, what do you want to do? What do you want? How do you want to make a difference?
Awesome. And one other thing is you mentioned self-care and how important that self-care is. So what did you do every day, Becky, to enhance your self-care that builds your resilience? I know you run.
Isn't that, yes, love to run. That's and I think that's so important that we have our own plan.
Mhm.
And what's important to me is emotionally, I know I need to process my feelings each day. I need to have, so, often it's with my husband. That's part of my self-care, is to just be able to check in and process that.
Mm.
And to, physically, it's important for me to be active and move. Boy, that spiritual connection, I feel like being outside is so helpful to me. Like, just making sure each day I get some fresh air, to get some time to be outside, get some time to kind of recharge for the day. I'm a big, bubble bath. that time of just kind of reflecting on the day is really important to me. And I feel like those things are, like I said, I try and be flexible, but yet I also, those are kind of things that I try and make sure I don't cut out. Like, it takes a lot for me not to get my physical opportunity outside. I'll run to work with wet hair and a ponytail so that I can get in my run, like I really value.
So the habits of that are really important. And I'm like that. I make sure that I get my 7,500 steps in a day, not running. Just want to be clear. Yeah. Those are not running steps. That's an ambition, but yeah, that's a laugh. That's a humor thing. Yeah. For me, the more I can do it outside too, I agree. Just feeling that sun just makes me feel good. So, well, thank you, Becky. And we're going to move to the question and answer session, because I know that people are going to have a lot of questions. But before we do that, where can people find more about you and connect with you?
Certainly. Let's see. On Instagram, Becky Andrews. Facebook, Becky Andrews Resilient Vision. My email is becky.lpc@gmail.com. Website, beckyandrews.info. Love to connect in any way that I can.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you. And as I said, I have valued our relationship and our friendship and your mentoring over the past year so much. Thank you for making a difference in the lives of so many people who are visually impaired, and others as well, but especially those of us who are visually impaired women.
I look forward to the day I can give you a hug in person.
Me too. So I'm sending you a virtual one right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.